They failed over and over. Then everything changed. They failed again, and again, and again. Not once, not twice, but so many times that even they began to wonder, is this a sign to quit? Friends stopped asking how it was going. Family stopped believing. And eventually, they stopped believing too. But what no one saw was that every failure was quietly preparing them for something bigger. This isn't a story about luck. This isn't a story about talent. This is a story about what happens when failure refuses to break you. And then everything changed. This story isn't about one person. It's about anyone who has ever tried and failed. Anyone who has felt embarrassed by effort. Anyone who has questioned their own potential. Anyone who wondered if success was meant for other people. If you've ever felt like quitting because nothing worked, this story is for you. Because sometimes failure isn't the end. Sometimes it's the training. At first, they were excited. They had ideas, energy, hope. They tried starting a business. It failed. They tried another. It failed too. They changed strategies, changed directions, changed plans. Nothing worked. Each failure felt heavier than the last. Not because of the money, not because of the effort, but because of the quiet question creeping in. Maybe I'm just not good enough. They watched others succeed. Others who started later. Others who seemed less serious. That comparison hurt more than failure itself. At night, the doubts were loud. You're wasting time. You should stop trying. This clearly isn't for you. Failure stopped feeling like feedback. It started feeling personal. And here's the part no one talks about. Failure doesn't hurt because it happens. Failure hurts because of what it makes you believe about yourself. They didn't quit because they were lazy. They almost quit because they were tired of hoping. What broke them wasn't failure. It was repetition. Each loss chipped away at confidence. Each setback made them quieter. They stopped sharing ideas. Stopped talking about dreams. Stopped expecting anything to work. From the outside, it looked like maturity. From the inside, it felt like surrender. They told themselves they were being realistic. But realism slowly became fear. They weren't afraid of failing anymore. They were afraid of trying again. Because trying meant hoping. And hoping meant risking disappointment. This is where most people stop. Not because they can't succeed, but because they don't want to feel foolish again. One night, exhausted and frustrated, they asked a different question. Not, why does this keep failing? But, what is failure trying to teach me? That question changed everything. They looked back, not with emotion, but with honesty. Every failed attempt had something in common. They weren't failing because they were incapable. They were failing because they were copying. Copying trends. Copying success stories. Copying shortcuts. They were chasing outcomes instead of understanding problems. And here's the realization that flipped the script. Success doesn't reward effort. It rewards usefulness. They hadn't been solving real problems. They had been chasing validation. This time, they didn't start with an idea. They started with observation. They listened. They watched what people complained about, what confused them, what frustrated them. They noticed patterns. The same questions, asked again and again. And suddenly something clicked. They didn't need a perfect business. They needed a useful solution. So they picked one problem. Not the biggest. Not the trendiest. The clearest. Then they did something different. They didn't announce it. They didn't seek approval. They tested quietly. They offered help. They explained things simply. They focused on clarity, not attention. For the first time, effort felt light. Because it wasn't about proving anything. It was about helping someone. Results didn't come instantly. But something changed. People started responding. Not with praise. With questions. Can you explain that again? Can you help me with this? Do you offer this as a service? That's when they realized something powerful. Failure had trained them. Every past mistake had sharpened their thinking. They knew what didn't work. And now they knew why. They refined, simplified, improved. And slowly, almost quietly, momentum started building. Then it happened. Not a viral moment. Not a big announcement. A message. Can I pay you for this? That message changed everything. Because for the first time, failure turned into income. Not because they became smarter overnight, but because they became clearer. They weren't selling dreams. They were selling solutions. That one payment wasn't about money. It was proof. Proof that value creates opportunity. Proof that persistence compounds. Proof that failure wasn't rejection. It was preparation. Here's the irony. Once things started working, nothing magical happened. They didn't suddenly feel confident. They didn't feel special. They just trusted the process more. The same failures that once embarrassed them became their advantage. They could see mistakes before others made them. They moved slower, but smarter. And success became predictable. Not emotional, not stressful, just logical. Failure isn't proof you should quit. It's proof you're learning, but only if you study it. Most people fail, feel pain, and walk away. The successful ones fail, analyze, and adapt. That's the difference. Failure doesn't reward persistence alone. It rewards reflection. If you're failing right now, you're not behind. You're being trained. If nothing has worked yet, it doesn't mean nothing will. It means you're closer than you think. Success isn't found by avoiding failure. It's found by understanding it. This story isn't about them. It's about you. Because the moment you stop asking, "Why am I failing?" and start asking, "What is this preparing me for?" everything changes. Success leaves clues. Subscribe to Success Stories Unlocked. Your breakthrough might be closer than you think.